In the summer of 1814, the young United States stood on the edge of humiliation. Few in its capital believed the danger was real. British warships moved up the Chesapeake Bay, carrying thousands of battle-hardened soldiers fresh from fighting Napoleon in Europe. They came ashore with methodical discipline, an army that had marched across a continent at war, now aimed at Washington itself. Word reached the capital in fragments and rumors. Even as smoke rose on the horizon, many refused to believe the enemy would actually come. At Bladensburg, just outside the capital, American militia gathered to make a stand, untrained farmers and clerks facing professional soldiers. On one side, discipline forged by years of European war. On the other, citizens who had picked up muskets only days before. Cannons were wheeled into position, crews straining under the weight, preparing for a battle whose outcome was already all but decided. The first shots tore across the field. Smoke and thunder announced that the fight for Washington had finally begun. Within minutes, the American line began to waver. Discipline gave way to confusion, and confusion gave way to fear. The battle collapsed within hours. American lines broke and scattered so fast that soldiers would later mock it as the Bladensburg races. When the smoke cleared, the battlefield stood empty. There was no army left standing between the enemy and the capital. The road to Washington now lay wide open. No barricades, no defenders, nothing but dust settling in the fading light. Inside the president's house, panic gave way to urgent, disciplined action. There was little time, and everyone knew it. First Lady Dolley Madison refused to leave without one final act of defiance. Even as cannon fire echoed in the distance, she ordered the full-length portrait of George Washington saved at any cost, refusing to let the enemy claim it as a trophy. With British troops closing in, the canvas was carefully cut free from its frame, a race against time measured in minutes. The painting was carried out through the grand entrance and into safety, one of the only things pulled from the capital that night. By nightfall, British troops marched into an eerily empty capital. There was no resistance left to slow them down. Streets that once held the business of a young government now stood silent and abandoned, waiting. For what came next, British officers approached the president's house itself, the symbolic heart of a nation now defenseless before them. Inside, they found a dining table set for a celebration that would never happen. Food untouched, chairs empty. According to accounts passed down through history, the soldiers sat down and ate the very meal prepared for their enemy. Then, without ceremony, torches were lit. What came next would be remembered for the next 200 years. Flames caught quickly, spreading across curtains and furniture, consuming a house that had stood as a symbol of the nation. The president's house burned through the night, its sandstone walls glowing orange against the darkness, lighting up the sky for miles. It was not the only building to fall. The Capitol and the Treasury burned alongside it, the government itself set ablaze. Some witnesses said the fires could be seen for miles, a glowing wound in the American sky that no one could look away from. Citizens gathered on distant hillsides to watch in silence, witnessing something no American had ever seen before, their own capital burning. Then, as if nature itself intervened, a violent storm rolled through Washington, and British forces began their withdrawal from the ruined city. From the ashes, Washington rebuilt. The scorched walls of the president's house were painted over, and from that restoration came a new name that would outlast every soldier who marched that night. Workers scrubbed away the soot and layered on coat after coat of white paint, turning a symbol of defeat into something the nation would come to call the White House. More than 2 centuries later, it still stands. Not because it was never broken, but because it was rebuilt. A single night of fire, and a nation that refused to end there.